Let's talk about May Swenson's poem, Teleology. Titles are very important in poetry, especially if they're crafted by the author. Sometimes an editor and anthologist will use the first line. This is an older practice if poet has not designated a title. But when the poet makes the title, it means something. In teleology, with your phone or online or whatnot, if you don't know the term already, you should have looked it up to understand this poem. And it just means, the purpose of things. Um, Looking at something and trying to understand it based on what it was meant to do and how it will accomplish that purpose. So this poem is all about eyes, and again, this is the notion of the poetic moment in the sense of an object that somebody just realizes, wow, that's interesting. I can write something unique and interesting about that. This is not necessarily something that you experience for the first time, like the earlier poem Root Cellar, where the persona in the poem, or the writer walks into the cellar and experiences this moment in a place. But this is more of a conceptual um, eureka moment, if you will, when the poet or Swenson sits down and realizes this can make a great topic. This could work. Think of where the eyes are placed in different animals. Think of where they're placed in humans. What can I make about that? How can I use that to contrast what humans do versus other animals and insects? And here, this is a very sharp poem. There's very little wasted energy here. Again, if you're trying to find perfect rhyme and perfect meter, you're not going to find it. Every now and then feel you will see words working with each other, rhyming or slant rhyming, which is almost writing or sharing vowels, and the sound itself will work if you read it aloud and carefully. But much poetry, especially modern poetry, is not necessarily meant to be read aloud. I think that's always a good practice. I think that every poet is very careful about the words they pick and the way they format those words on the page, how they're using white space and whatnot. So now, if with that idea in mind, there are questions that arise. For example, look at the fourth stanza here. All right, it says above the daggering light. That's talking about what fish can see. We'll read this again, but right under that line, it's round as a burr the eye. Doesn't tell you what animal's coming next. It's in fact going to talk about the fly, but right in the middle of a stanza, it finishes talking about the fish and then moves on to talk about the fly. And you might think, well, shouldn't maybe each stanza be dedicated to each animal or whatnot? And well, it might work that way. Some poems might really work that way, and this poem doesn't. The end question is not what a poem. You don't go into poetry evaluating it with the notion of what it should look like, right? You read it and you experience it, and then you ask yourself, was this something that was good for me? And if for some reason it wasn't, or it wasn't all that great, you have to develop the sense to say, well, for 100 people in the room, uh, would it have been powerful to 50? That's a great batting average for poetry, 1 out of 2. Would it have affected to some degree in a positive way? Would it make, 75, 80%, 80 people in that room pay attention and listen? Would it create interest, maintain it, and reward it for those people? And if you can imagine that room responding to the poem like this, then this is a good poem. All right. Now, the more that you read this type of poetry and the more that you pay attention to the both sides of poetic development, which is reading, 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 and then writing, writing, writing. You read, you write, you read, you write. But don't forget about the reading. All right. So many people that want to become writers spend time writing, but they don't spend enough time reading. But there should be at least equal share of time. In fact, there should be really quite much more time done for reading so that you get a sense of good story. reading stories that have been published, that have been selling well, that have been working well, stories in your genre that you want to write in. That's what you need to be studying. And you need to be looking at the narrative art, the story art, the art of the story, not just in novels, but poems and movies and songs, you know, and you need to see how all of those will train you how to understand the beginning, middle, end, how to create interest, maintain it, reward it, how to link those pieces together, how to do it in a shorter way, a longer way, what what subject merits what length, etc. Right? So I have no issue with the poem like this. This is beautiful. I think that it has preserved the simplicity in the way it's organizing its stanzas. The white space is done well. The length of the lines are done well. That's the, you know that, and I'm just saying that it works for this poem. You might go to some other poem and it's different. It's going to be different. All right. So you give each poem at this point has earned the right to be read and to be approached on its own terms. And now let's read this quickly. The eyes look front in humans. Horse or dog could not shoot. Seeing two sides to everything. That's beautiful, isn't it? I mean, the animals that are very, very close to man, to women, to humans, the horse, the dog. Think of how those two animals have affected our history. And they have watched us become violent beings. But because of how their eyes are, she's saying they see two sides to everything. They could never shoot a gun. They could never shoot to kill because of a difference in opinion or value. But we can. Our eyes are trained for that almost. I mean, the notion is humans are in a category of themselves here, and they are trained to. Well, let's keep on reading. The eyes look front in humans. Horse or dog cannot shoot. Seeing two sides to everything. Fish, who never shut their eyes, can swim on their sides and see two worlds. Blunt dark below, above the daggering light. Round as a burr, the eye its whole head. The housefly sees in a whizzing circle. Human double-barreled eyes, in their narrow blind, trained forward, hope to shoot and hit if they can find it. The backward speeding hole in the Cyclops' face of the future. Now it helps if you know that the Cyclops, the one-eyed monster in Greek mythology, was thought to have given up both eyes, to have sacrificed one eye in order to receive the visionary gift to be able to see the future. So you have one eye in the middle of their forehead, but they have a prophetic gift. They can see, uh, the future. And to to hit towards this, okay, the backward speeding hole. We got back, we got future. We're thinking in we're placed in this line of memory, the past, the now, and the future, and the present. But she doesn't let us stay there. Swenson brings up this backward speeding hole in front of us. The future is speeding backward in relation to itself. It's moving away from us, and we're trying to rush toward it, and we're trying to peer into it, to have the questions that haunt us as humans answered. What happens after death? Is there meaning in old age? Are we eternal? Are we what is the future for us? We are very concerned about that, extremely so. Fish, horses, dogs, flies, do they worry about the future in that way? Do they have these existential moments? Um, and so the I here leads from the physical concept to much more of a philosophical existential dilemma that we're in, that the animals do not share. And all of that is coming from Swanson realizing, hey, I can write a poem about eyes, and I can use it. I can contrast the way that they're placed on the sides of a dog or a horse, and the way they're just the whole helmet of the head for a fly, and the fish turning upside. It's a beautiful imagery, isn't it? The fish actually floating on its side, and then being able to see the light above and the dark below, and to be able to sense that. Um, And that this poem is just asking you to consider that, but it's asking you to consider it through a very beautiful medium. This medium has been crafted. The material elements of this, the animals, the cyclops, the metaphors that were brought into play, like the eyes being a shotgun in their narrow blind, which is your head. The building that the hunter hides in, and sticks the gun out of the little window, referring to the person in your head that wants to know about the future. There was a name for that so many years ago, homunculus. The homunculus is the little person that lives in your head that would run your body. Of course, it never survived as a philosophical concept because, the logical question is, well, who runs the homunculus? Well, then you had a homunculus for the homunculus, a little person inside the little person. Got this little person in your head. It's got a little head, and in the head is a little person got its little head, and so. But it has its place in our the history of ideas, as a short-lived idea. But to bring all of that into this poem, and to present it as a playful thing. How many lines here? I mean, so many times we think about poetry, and we want to write too much. We want to write 20 lines, 30 lines, 50 lines. We want 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 16 lines. But you know, we got like four syllables per line or something. 4, 5, 6 syllables per line. This is a short poem, but look at how much it does. And this is a mark of a master poet. So I want you to consider that. It's not length. It's not How many words in this poem did you not understand other than the title, right? Sure, it was good to know what the title meant, and it also was really good to know the mythical history of the Cyclops. That's rewarding you for maybe intelligent or information you brought to this experience. But the words that are used here, a fifth grader can understand almost all of them. And to craft such a catalyst, such a diving board, if you will, into the depth of the questions or the notion it raises for us to consider. What makes us human? What makes us different from the horse, the fish, the fly, the dog? And it's that backward speeding Cyclops eye of the future. All right.